Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final conference session on the state of the Canadian wireless industry. I hope you've all had a great 3 days so far. The conference may be almost over, but we've still got one fantastic session left. Before we begin, I want to thank RFOCS for sponsoring this session. Through their sponsorship, we will be raffling off a $25 gift card prize. As you probably know by now, anyone attending this session live will automatically be placed into the draw. Check out the STAC 2022 e-News Daily tomorrow to find out if you are the winner. And for those of you collecting game points, this session's code is 7437. Don't forget that we'll be closing the STAC 2022 gamification section soon, so you'll want to enter that code ASAP. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the wireless industry's fiercest defender in the nation's capital, CWTA's president and CEO, Rob Ghiz. Take it away, Rob.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Nick, for that kind introduction. And it's wonderful to be here. Bon après-midi à tous. I want to begin by thanking everyone for their attendance and participation this week at the 6th Annual STAC Conference and Exhibition. While I know everyone wishes we could have gathered in person this year, I have to say it was nevertheless remarkable to see the excitement and energy from all the organizations, delegates, and sponsors attending this year's event. I know virtual events can be a challenge, but as always, the team and members of STAC have come through to deliver another great virtual conference. A huge thank you goes out to our full conference sponsors, Alliance Corp, Avida, Gap Wireless, and RFOCS, as well as the numerous other organizations that have stepped up to sponsor various aspects of the past 3 days. I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to everyone who has volunteered for a STAC project, participated in committee meetings, or contributed to STAC's leadership over the past year, with particular thanks to members of the STAC Steering Committee and the various committee leads. We wouldn't be gathered like this without the commitment, hard work, and generous support of all who have provided. The pandemic has been a challenge over the last 2 years, but it hasn't stopped STAC. Just look at the growth that we've seen. STAC membership has increased exponentially since its inception in 2016, when we had just 10 organizations participating at STAC's launch. Now we have more than 130 involved. What started as a small group of about 40 people is now a community of over 700 like-minded individuals who have shared their commitment to tower safety. In person, virtual, it doesn't matter. The STAC Conference and Exhibition has always shown so many of the things that make the industry great: drive, commitment, and passion. In my view, the reason for that growth and success is simple. It's because of you, the members. This annual conference and exhibition is Canada's premier tower industry event because hundreds of you, professionals from coast to coast to coast and from across the telecommunications spectrum, want to learn about the trends and challenges shaping our country's industry, because you want to make new connections, share your experiences in the field, and engage in spirited discussions with colleagues, and most of all, because you understand the importance of ensuring Canadians continue benefiting from access to some of the most advanced wireless networks in the world. The simple reality is that these networks would not function. They wouldn't even exist without the expertise and dedication of a specialized and skilled tower industry workforce. It is because of this industry, all of you attending the conference this week, all of your colleagues, that tens of millions of Canadians, from urban centers to remote and rural communities, are able to stay connected, to participate in the digital economy, to have access to the entire world in the palm of their hand. That is something the past 2 years have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly demonstrated the immense value of Canada's wireless communications networks and just how crucial STAC members are to ensuring these networks continue to be safely improved and expanded. I know it's been said many times before, but it still bears repeating. Despite having a population spread across vast regions of varying terrain, Canada's facilities-based carriers have nevertheless implemented some of the world's fastest and most reliable wireless networks, reaching every province and territory. Independent network analyst OpenSignal has described Canada as a 4G superpower, with few other countries better prepared to deploy 5G networks into the future. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. Canada ranks among the top 5 globally for average mobile download speed, with LTE network coverage reaching 99.5% of the Canadian population. This includes rural LTE coverage, which has expanded rapidly over the last decade, increasing from 35.4% of the rural population in 2013 to 97.4% of the rural population in 2019. Canadian rural network performance exceeds that of the combined urban-rural network of most other countries. In fact, in a 2020 report by OpenSignal, they stated that if rural Canada were its own country, it would rank 12th in the world in average download speed. Meanwhile, the demand for wireless services continues to accelerate. As of the end of 2022, there were almost 39 million wireless subscriptions in Canada, 34.5% of which were mobile phone subscriptions. More Canadians now have mobile phone than landlines, at least 94.5% compared to 38.8% in 2020. And over 1/3 of Canadian households rely exclusively on wireless services. In 2020, Canada's telecommunication industry contributed over $70 billion to Canada's GDP, while supporting almost 600,000 jobs. During that same period, Canada's facilities-based service providers invested over $10.5 billion in capital expenditures to expand and upgrade their wireless and wireline infrastructure. These network operators have also invested over $12 billion in the last 3 years to acquire the right to use additional spectrum to continue their deployment of 5G services across our great country. At the same time, while the consumer price index for all items remained stable during 2000, Statistics Canada cellular price index declined by 14%. In 2001, the all items CPI has risen significantly, as we've seen, while the cellular services price index has declined even further, with the index declining by approximately 23% since January 2020. This decline in the cellular service price index is a result of the competition amongst all network operators, big and small. The economic indicators I've mentioned demonstrate the telecommunications industry's key role as a lifeline for Canadian economic and social prosperity in 2020. But they do not tell the full story of the industry's contributions in the last 2 years. These are staggering numbers, but our work is not yet done. While the vast majority of Canadians have access to wireless services, the expansion of digital infrastructure to underserved communities and along major highways and roads continues and must continue into the future. And to ensure that Canada maintains its leadership role in telecommunications, our network operators are working aggressively to expand 5G services across the country. This work will not be easy, nor will it be cheap. Consulting firm Accenture estimates that the initial phase of 5G deployment will require $26 billion in capital expenditures by the year 2026. This does not include the billions of dollars that must be spent to acquire additional spectrum rights. Why should we spend so much on 5G? Because 5G is not just an upgrade to 4G. It is a whole new telecommunications system that will transform the way that Canadians conduct business, receive critical services like healthcare, and interact with one another. 5G will be the foundation for the digital economy and will be a key enabler for Canada's economic recovery. Accenture estimates that the adoption of 5G will contribute an additional $40 billion to the Canadian economy by 2026 and create approximately 250,000 permanent full-time equivalent jobs in the same time period. On top of that, they estimate that the construction and engineering work required to deploy 5G networks will result in an additional 150,000 short-term jobs. But 5G will do more than just stimulate Canada's economy. 5G will help tackle some of the world's biggest challenges, including climate change. As the demand for mobile data increases, we need to adopt technologies that allow wireless networks to operate more efficiently. Equally important, our wireless networks must support other industries' desire to use wireless technologies to make their operations and products more environmentally friendly. 5G does both. It is estimated that the 5G will drive a 1,000-fold increase in mobile traffic in the next 10 years, while the full network's energy consumption will be half of the current levels. Allow me to repeat that again. It is estimated that 5G will drive a 1,000-fold increase in mobile traffic in the next 10 years, while the full network's energy consumption will be half of the current levels. That is just phenomenal. And by enabling new digital use cases in sectors like transportation, smart buildings, and smart working, it is estimated that mobile technologies, including 5G, have the potential to address up to 23% of Canada's total 2030 emissions by the year 2025. Of course, there will be obstacles to overcome along the way. As we've heard this year, our industry is facing challenges on a variety of fronts, including labor shortages, the need to balance safety and efficiency, and adapting to the scope and scale of climate change. But these are challenges we intend to meet head on, challenges that Canada's structure, tower, and antenna industry will overcome together. The work you do, combined with the investments being made by Canada's facilities-based providers, are not only transforming the way in which Canadians communicate, work, and play, it is also fueling economic growth and innovation and helping address some of the world's biggest challenges using digital technology. It is because of your specialized skills and your commitment that this transformational growth can occur. You are the people who will make it possible. And you do so while looking for the safety of one another. And that's why everyone at CWTA is so incredibly humbled and excited to have hosted you this week at the STAC 2022 conference and exhibition. The work we are collectively doing is positively impacting the lives of countless Canadians while ensuring our country remains a world leader in wireless technology and tower safety. STAC members do the heavy lifting for people across the country, in big cities and small towns and everywhere in between, to ensure that all Canadians remain connected and those Canadians that aren't connected can get connected. Every time I use my phone, the only reason it works, the only reason I can text my family or check my email or laugh at the latest meme on social media is because you have done the hard work to make it possible. So let me close these remarks by simply saying thank you. Canadians are incredibly proud and lucky to have the networks that we do have in this country. And it's because of your extraordinary work that we're able to have these world-class networks right here at home. While I know that this year I was looking forward to being in Vancouver as I was the previous year, I know that next year we'll all be looking forward to being in Niagara Falls. And hopefully the following year, we'll all be in Vancouver so that we can learn from one another, so that we can share ideas, so that we can celebrate the great work that you're doing and the great work that Canada is benefiting from because of the world-class networks that we have here in Canada. So thank you very much et merci beaucoup.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rob, for yet another fantastic presentation. We have a little bit of time for a question here, and I was really wondering if you could speak a little bit to the political situation in Ottawa right now, particularly as it pertains to the industry, of course, but anything else that you think might be relevant. Always interested in hearing your thoughts on politics.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It's been an interesting time politically. I wouldn't want to be in government now dealing with the pandemic, dealing with different wars happening around the world. But setting that aside, it was really this year we had an election. We saw Justin Trudeau's Liberals get reelected with a minority government again. Some people say that it was a waste of time for the election. I never think elections are a waste of time. And the one thing that I will point out to with regards to the election is it's created a buffer zone. So the government doesn't have to worry about every single issue that there could be an election tomorrow. We've got a window now, probably a year and a half to 3 years before we'll see another general election. I'm presuming that this is just an assumption that I don't know if Justin Trudeau will be around for the next election. Politics today, a day in politics is like a month in real life sometimes. So he's got a young family. We'll see what happens with him over the next couple of years. You never know. He may run again. The Conservatives are in a interesting situation right now. Obviously, Aaron O'Toole probably didn't succeed as well as he did. I think he did fine during the election, but it's tough being in opposition. There's always people saying, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And they expect you to be able to win an election right away. So they're going into another leadership campaign. Obviously, you've got Pierre Poilievre, who is a seasoned politician, more of a populist, I would say. But he is extremely articulate. And I always say in politics, never underestimate anyone. The next candidate, I'm a touch biased because I served when I was premier for 8 years. I served with Jean Charest. He's probably one of the most qualified individuals in the country to lead a party, perhaps becoming prime minister. But it'll be up to their party to decide. So that'll happen. I believe their leadership's going to be in September. So that'll be exciting to watch. There'll be a few other candidates that will run as well. But I think it's probably between those two. Eventually the Conservatives will be elected. It's just how politics works. And whoever's sitting in the chair, I always like to say in politics that political or governments don't get elected, governments get defeated. So at some point, there's going to be a change in government. And what we're doing at CWTA, one of my main things is working with governments, whether or not it's decision makers at the CRTC or at ISED, but at the same time, briefing up MPs and political staff along the way. So I've got meetings with all political parties, all MPs of different stripes with cabinet ministers, updating them on the importance of our industry. And I say that because you've heard about the investments. We just spent almost $9 billion on the 3500 spectrum auction. We've invested over $10 billion in 1 year just trying to connect more Canadians. Well, we need a solid regulatory environment so that we can continue on with those investments. And that's what I'm trying to point out to decision makers in Ottawa, to opposition parties. I meet with the NDP as well. And the Bloc, I meet with them all to be able to make the argument that facilities-based competition, so as you know, those operators that build their own networks, that we need a regulatory environment so they can look 2, 5, 10 years down the road so that they can do the planning to ensure that we keep upgrading and building our network. So we've got two things to do. One is upgrade our current networks. You hear me talking about 4G to 5G. But we also need to connect more Canadians, whether or not it's on the wireless side or the wireline side as well. And I think the pandemic, despite all the negativity, it's been something where I think it will change into the future, the work environment, where more people will probably work from home in the future. Yes, I think we'll return to offices, but there'll be more hybrid models into the future. So staying connected will be extremely important. But it's emphasized the importance of investment. And there's really been two main things from a policy perspective that we've been working on. One's not directly correlated with the wireless industry. It's more on the wireline industry, and that's TPIA, which is the resellers. There was a decision back in 2018-19 that it was not favorable towards encouraging investment in our country. They set the reseller rates practically lower than what it costs to build the networks. So it took away all incentive to go out and build networks. And that really affects not only wireline, but wireless as well, because all these companies that I represent basically do both. That decision was reversed last year. New rates put in. We still have to deal with appeals that are taking place, but hopefully we'll see that decision upheld, which will allow our members, the facilities-based providers in Canada, to be able to do long-term planning to make sure that they continue on with the investment that they've been making. The second decision is around mandating MVNOs. And, I want to set the record straight here, because a lot of people, and you'll hear the resellers talking about this, well, we don't have MVNOs in Canada. We do have MVNOs. And we're the same as any other jurisdictions around the world. There's very few that mandate, if any, MVNOs. And the ones that did mandate MVNOs, what did they discover? That investments declined dramatically, which is bad for improving our networks and connecting those Canadians that aren't connected. So the MVNO decision was a bit of a hybrid. It came out where it encouraged facilities-based competition, so that you had to be a holder of spectrum and someone that's going to build networks into the future to be able to be a reseller. So you'll see some of the smaller players in Canada that are facilities-based providers becoming resellers to a certain extent. We know that still has some appeals to go through as well, but I still think it was a decent decision moving forward to encourage investment. So that's really where we're at. A little bit politically, a little bit kind of some of the issues we're dealing with, but it's a constant battle out there. I had the privilege a couple of weeks ago to be able to take kind of my first vacation in a couple of years. And I went to Florida, and I played golf for 5 days with a bunch of people that were from Prince Edward Island as well. And, it's amazing because people don't understand how lucky we are in Canada with our wireless networks. And, whether it's on the golf course or over dinner, everyone kept talking about how there's got to be something wrong with the provider plan that we got between Canada and the US, because our phones aren't working as good down here. And I was very happy to point out, well, quite frankly, Canada's networks are much better than the US. In fact, our download speeds are probably up to twice as fast as US. Our coverage is much better. Our seamless roaming is much better. And we're very fortunate to be in Canada. The problem is perception. And perception and reality are, as you know, two different things. But we sit there and we watch Sunday football, NFL football, and we see these advertisements for, the greatest networks at $15, or those are resellers, or they advertise at, $70, $50 for a plan, but there's always fine writing in there. And the fact is that our networks are better in Canada. They are reasonably comparable in prices. Now you can get unlimited plans in Canada for $75, if not cheaper sometimes when there's promotions put on. So our networks are doing quite well, but sometimes we need to put up with the perceptions. So my main goal over the next number of years, regardless of which political party is in power, is to ensure that there's a regulatory environment that encourages investment in telecommunications. And I think that's very important for all members of STAC, because they want to be able to plan. All our businesses that do the building in Canada, you got to go out and hire. You want to make sure that you're going to be there to employ these people into the future. So that's why it's vitally important, the public advocacy and the lobbying that we do at the CWTA level. And STAC's a great example. I've had the opportunity to be in government meetings with some of your members, Nick, on STAC, and you guys have a great story to tell. And as the pandemic comes to a close, hopefully, or the new reality sets in, I'm looking forward to working with STAC members. And I've traveled all over the country and had meetings with different members from the STAC community, and I'm looking forward to doing that in the future to ensure that our industry can thrive. That was a little bit long-winded, Nick. Sorry about that, but I enjoy Q&As. And listen, I just hope that you guys have a wonderful conference now that it's ending. I hope you learned a lot. I know it's different virtually. I'm looking forward to having dinner, maybe a cocktail with all of you next year in Niagara Falls. I'll try to avoid the tables. Don't want to drop any money there. Yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone next year. Back to you, Nick.